So this is our agenda overview of what CCLV does, seminary enrollment trends, racial, ethnic, profession class. The study was just sent to us last week because it's released on February 2nd, the day of consecrated life. Bishop Boyer from Lansing, anybody here from Michigan?
Close, Ohio.
Close enough. Anybody here avoiding snow up north? It's funny, I lived in Florida for, from the time I was 17 to I was called to go back to the north. And I forgot, when people came down and said, it's wonderful to be here. It's like another planet. Well, 2 inches of snow in DC this morning, and I look out my window and people are at the pool, and I'm like, I know what you mean. I am in another planet. 5 bishops. One of them is from the Eastern Rite, Father Bishop Beiruti. Father Arthur Unachuco is our latest acquisition. Bishop Burns was gracious enough when we were in Dallas last week to begin the process to send Father Arthur to work with us. He was the vicar for clergy, and we're excited for him to come on board. Hopefully he can come to one of these. As you can see here, the mission of CCLV and Serra, they go hand in hand. It's closer than any one of us even really recognizes at times. Our different projects, so the program for priestly formation was released. As I spoke to you last year, it envisions and sets the guidelines, norms, etc. for propedeutic. Father Matthew, who was just here, he's the one who is leading propedeutic here at St. John Vianney, where we will be later on today. The Guide to Ongoing Formation for Priests was just approved by the bishops in June, and it's now available. For those of you who may not know, the conference closed its printing house, and so we had to now farm out, if you will, or give a license. A contract is drawn up so that a license can be given to Ascension Press, to our Sunday Visitor. The conference still owns the material, but they, now have the ability. They have permission not only to print it, but the availability to distribute it and everything else. It's either that, or could you imagine Casey and I doing customer service? Now, did the box show up broken, or was it broken afterwards? And one of the goals is increase multicultural vocations, Hispanic, as we did go to World Youth Day. It was an incredible experience. We prepared for about 5,000. And when we got there, about 12,000 showed up. And that's when they said to us, we have to close the park. They can't come in. And people were texting me, some of the Orlando seminarians and priests, can you get us in? While Bishop Barrett is about to speak and his MC comes up to me and says to me, the bishop needs water. Now, we went to every cubicle, everywhere we could find, all the water was gone. So I had to go to the gate, have them open, go outside, get some water, and eventually bring it in. Eventually, we had about 16,000 people show up to this World Youth Day event. Our hope is that when we go to Korea, we will be able to make it even larger. We also had a QR code in some of the cards so that the young people who felt a call could sign up, and they give us their information, and we could funnel it out to the dioceses, to the religious communities based on their interests. It was a bit challenging because when you're expecting 5,000 and 16,000 show up, they couldn't walk. So we'll have to figure out how to do that better next time. These are some of the press releases that we have, projects, Sanctification for Priests, Vocation Awareness Week, the various surveys, and we're happy to share these slides with you. I know that John will put them up on the website. The one for diaconate is more about the diaconate as a whole in a diocese, but the other ones focus specifically on each person that is professed or about to be ordained. Who encouraged you? How old were you when you first thought about it? All of these various questions that we're about to get into. So, an overview of the organization, of how we work with deacons, priests from various ethnicities. We mentioned the Hispanic one, but we were aware that there are some from the one for African priests, the one for Korean priests, the one for Vietnamese priests. There's only so many languages I can keep up with. And the numbers too, that's part of the reason why we try to focus on certain demographics. This is just consecrated life, and each one of them has an acronym. United States Association of Consecrated Virgins, which, by the way, the president lives here in Westchester. Westchester is the neighborhood where the seminary is going to be. She goes to St. Brendan's and she goes to La Carreta, but she's really from Lansing, Michigan. So these are some of the organizations that we work with. Priestly formation. At the bottom right, you have those that are theology schools. Today we will be in the college seminary school. Institute for Priestly Formation. You also have the ones who run seminaries, Salpetians. Serra, Vocations, NRVC, and NCDVD. Everybody say it with me. NCDVD. Rose Sullivan would be so proud.
Yes, she would.
So enrollment trends for 2023. We just started the survey for this year, but we won't have that until after ordinations. As you could see here, in the 60s, we were at our peak, not just for seminary enrollment, but this was also true for consecrated life. A lot of times people say, well, it's not the way it used to be. We no longer have a priest as a librarian. Things that today we would never think of. We no longer have a priest as a coach to the basketball team, because back then the bishops were just trying to figure out, what do I do with 37 of them? But part of it is, there isn't an atheist in a foxhole, So we had the war, people prayed, and they felt the call to the priesthood. And gradually that tapered off. And right now, as you can see, the line is holding steady. Could it be higher? For sure, but we're holding steady. As the Cardinal said, there are challenges, but we also have the theological virtue of hope. Most of the seminarians are in theology, 89% of them. A lot of the dioceses even religious communities are moving towards accepting those who have gone through college already. They say it's more life experience, and even some religious communities are now saying not just college, but we need to see that you have worked, paid your bills, learned, all of these various things. There are schools of thought. As I speak with the National Association of Catholic Seminaries, and Father Kelly from Minneapolis is the president. He did not go to a college seminary, but he's an incredible advocate for it, saying that somebody who is 17, who is ready to go and give his life to the Lord, should be able to. And he tells the people, I am not a product of this system. I'm working in it now, and now I see the beauty of it. I see the beauty of being able to go to chapel on a Friday night instead of, to the local fraternity party. All of these different things. So, as you could see, one of the things we changed this past year, Father Luke did it, and I got to see the first batch of it, is with Cara, who does the studies, they're able to give us projections, the plus and minus sign there are. Should the trends continue, it's more or less going to hold steady, up or down, etc. In the college programs, it's 4% of all the seminarians around the country. And the trend, change plus or minus 1 between now and 2028. So, Father Matthew, you have great job security. Age distribution, there's this whole school of thought of how old should they be, etc. Above, you could take a look at them later on. Ethnicity. Gradually, the way that Cara is projecting it is that the 17% for Hispanic is gradually going to become closer to 30 in the next couple of years, as the numbers just continue to grow. The same way it's happened in the military, the same way it's happened in many different things. People find a way to get to where they need to be. And so it's a reflection of, that bottom line is, where the church is today. The green is non-white Hispanic, and then that orangey is Hispanic. So what this means is more and more you're going to see the priests that they're not going to, people won't be inspired to write the bishop a letter and say, I cannot understand him. People may say, he grew up in my neighborhood and he owes me money. But you know what? I'll go to his mass. All of these various things. You know, and all of these, we study them at the office and are in dialogue with seminaries. The National Association of Catholic Theological Schools had their meeting in October, and that's all the rectors of theology, the academic deans and whatnot. And we focused on this topic, partly because of a meeting the previous November where Bishop Boye allowed this to be a very fruitful discussion. Some of it is simply just the beauty of, you know, what it's like to go across cultures, you know. Even as we come here, we say we're all from the same church, various countries, ethnicities, and languages, but even here it's like, okay, you know, how do we relate to each other and make sure that we take care of one another? So many different examples. One that I'll share is at the house. How many of you have been to Spain? So you know that ham that they hang outside, right? Jamón serrano. How many of you love it? So I went to, it was Christmas, what can I tell you? I went to the wholesale club and I saw one. And you know what happened?
You bought it.
Yeah, I bought it. Yep. You know the price. Later on, they were selling it for 150. People were ready to pay cash. Pata negra. Well, it wasn't pata negra, but you know, it's the best I could get here in DC. So, you know, what the procedure to handle it is you take off, according to some people from Spain at the office, you take off the fatty part of it, the skin, and then you just hang it all over there until you're ready to go and take your next slice. Well, it has led to this incredible discussion at the house as to whether you leave meat out of the fridge or not. And it's been incredible. I've been watching it and I'm like, this is a whole lesson on cultural. And you know, some people say, no, you're going to poison the 9 priests of the conference and they're going to blame me. And on the other side, if I tell the people from Spain, they put it in the fridge and I have no control of it, they're going to say, what? And so this is what happens with culture. You know, how do you have that dialogue? And all I wanted was a piece of ham. So those are things that happen. You deal with it also with your children, grandchildren, you know. You went on Facebook to be with your grandkids, right? And they moved on to Instagram. And then gradually they're on TikTok. And so there's always these movements of how do we connect with each other? And how do we, you know, keep appropriate boundaries? Distribution of ordinance by ethnicity. As you can see, you have some, you know, goes up and down, etc. But it's more or less holding steady. I'm very grateful to our Lord for this. Other countries that are as developed as the United States are not having this type of season. And so it's something that we should thank the Lord. It's very easy to begin to say, oh, you know, things are bad, etc. But there are people saying yes. There are people saying yes. The same way that you do. I'll skip over here. With Deacon Zachary, Consecrated Life, I've always loved science and studied microbiology before joining my community. Faith and reason, science and religion, they go together. I was here at St. John Vianney. For those of you who don't know, I'm a priest of the Diocese of Orlando. I went to school here at St. John Vianney. And I still remember in 1998 or so when St. John Paul II, I don't know that I have the year correctly, released Fides et Ratio, Faith and Reason. Back then, Father Noonan, now my bishop, Bishop Noonan, called a conference and said, we need to discuss this document, that faith and reason go together. When they do the studies about people leaving the faith, we always say, you know, it happens in college or it happens here. The challenge is that at times it's happening in 3rd and 4th grade. And the reason is because they're seeing what the church teaches and what the world is saying, and they're thinking, this is a fable and this is scientific. I can prove this under a microscope, or so they're told. And so the more that our schools hold the line and show that faith and reason go together, that art is a way to encounter the Almighty. Streams, as some of the Catholic schools have begun to do, not just STEM as the universities, but streams, that way you have religion and art to be able to speak. Microbiology before going into the seminary, into his community. Over here. The top one, Sister Evangeline. I also enjoy working in our hospital as a medical laboratory scientist. Beautiful gifts that show to our young people that faith and reason go together, that they're never separate. And once that divorce or void is healed, then so much more happens. They begin to say, if this person is coming to church, if they're kneeling before the Blessed Sacrament, what is it that they know? It's always, for me, very interesting whenever you're going to a church that has a lot of doctors. Holy Redeemer in Kissimmee, we had a lot of them. So even during the lockdown, they would come and park their car in front of the church and pray. Now, you knock on their window to say, hey, may I help you? You couldn't get too close and all that, but they're like, I just need to pray before I go in. So I come in here. And they would go in and pray before surgery and whatnot. And, naturally the arts. I have a background in theater. I grew up with the arts. A way to show the world that there is not only art, but it's a way to transcend, to give meaning. Profession class, as we saw with the one in for seminaries. Here it's, 12% for Hispanic. Black is 7%, so that's already 19%. And other, so gradually the church is looking more, the leaders, consecrated life, priests, are looking more and more like those who are in the pews. It always takes time. It's funny because as we have, all of these dynamics, it's just good to make sure that we're open to what Jesus is doing in our current reality. So what did they do before they said yes? The blue is profession, the green is for priesthood, altar servers, lectors, catechists, youth minister, music ministry, altar server. I mean, that's a great number. So for those of you who are back home and you're watching the altar servers play with the bells and they just want to go and burn coal so that they can get incense and, the fire department shows up because the alarm's going off and you're getting a little discouraged, you may not see the fruit. But later on we will, and the fire department will take care of the smoke alarm. Participation in youth group, all of these various things. It's very interesting if you think about it, like World Youth Day is one, but youth group is the local one, the one where my aunt or my mom could pick me up after school. Sometimes it's, it's beautiful to have the large events, worldwide events, but it's the one that can be duplicated in many different parishes without it breaking the budget, and you still have personnel to be able to do it. Somebody was going to take a picture? Okay. What did they do? They went to Eucharistic Adoration, Lectio Divina, retreats, Bible study, sources of encouragement. This is very affirming. So years ago, priests were not the most, 63% of those in ordination class said that the priest in their local parish or a priest encouraged them. That was not the case some years ago. And so, the bishops discussed it, and NCDBD developed a way to train priests on how to encourage. And so that's a huge step, similar to, you see it with young couples when they come to your house for dinner, your nieces, nephews, and they ask you, what is marriage like? And you want to say to them, it's a mystery. Because sooner or later you had to surrender. You know, it's beautiful to surrender into the mystery. If you knew everything that was going to come, it would be boring. You like the adventure. Campus minister, and those sources of discouragement, I guess there's no surprise here, you know, family. Not so much, yeah, some of them are clergy, yeah. Those are the ones you don't want to take the job satisfaction survey from. But I mean, in every group, you're going to have the people who are like big fans and the ones who are not, you know. It's funny, I always remember when I was in vocations work, you know, you hand somebody the application, they fill it out, they fill out the psychological, they go through, meet with the bishop, meet with all the various people, the application board, and finally you call him and you tell him you've been accepted. And one time I called one, and I think he was at work, and all his co-workers were like, "Oh no, you've been duped." And it's like, they don't know what to do with this. What do you mean you're going to work for eternity? I'm working for my paycheck. Why are you challenging me to look further than my Friday afternoon, you know, depositing that check? And so that's what happens. I remember a lot of times, you know, nobody is more upset about celibacy or, you know, chastity than the people who don't live it at times. I think they're concerned that it's contagious. So, you know, I would walk into the supermarket with my Roman collar getting milk or whatever, and people are like, "Oh, he's here." What could happen? It's forcing everybody, including myself, to keep my eyes in heaven, because we're, you know, a priest, a consecrated male and female. They're living here as the way we're going to live in heaven, the way that our Lord speaks as brother and sister, even among couples. A unique friendship, as St. Catherine of Siena speaks about couples, but it will be as friends. Come and see, we just had this reading in past Sunday, and I just wanted to highlight it for you. Jesus did not say to them when, you know, so to give you the context, they spent their life savings, probably hurt their relationships in their family, to go and find this preacher in the desert who's eating locusts and wearing camel hair. Could you imagine if your children said that to you? "I found the one." You weren't going to say to them, "Oh, here's $100, tell me how it goes." And so after that, that guy wearing camel hair says he's the one. And so they just begin to follow another guy. And what does he say to them? He doesn't say to them, "You know what, we have a great 401k. Our signing bonus is out of this world. Come and see. Come and see." And so as you invite, your job is not to convince, just invite people to see, to experience. He didn't give them an address. That would have diminished this whole encounter. He didn't say, "Here's my cell phone. Sit with me by the fire. Listen to each other. Learn who you are. Follow me." And gradually, as they came and see, and eventually their original leader would be beheaded, they were able to not only follow Jesus to see, but eventually to give light to the world. So in that experience of prayer, in that experience of just being with, a lot can happen. The Eucharistic Congress promoted. Vocations will come from that. In one of the meetings, we spoke about how vocations and perhaps some new religious communities would be the fruit of the Congress. Communities that would be born there to help our world recognize that Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. Let religious communities, naturally, or dioceses, know that it is a wonderful opportunity. I know there will be more information about that later on. Intercede for it, so that everybody that is called to be there could make it there, or join virtually, whatever our Lord would like, His Majesty. So, well, this is one of the co-workers that I work with. He's on the third floor, and I'm on the fourth floor. Father Leo Perez, an oblate. He's from Texas. Anybody here from Texas? Texas is quiet. His mom was called to our Lord last year. And he was telling me a story one time. And he says, Mrs. Leo Perez, because he's named after his dad, was walking out of church, and she saw that, you know, that altar server that's always kind of doing a little too much with the incense, and said to him, "Hi, I'm Mrs. Leo Perez. Thank you for your service to our church. Have you ever thought of being a priest?" That altar server heard it, would eventually become a priest, and he was the one who preached her wake. And she's a Serra. And so as you go about your day, that invite that you think, where will it go? How will it be? All I can tell you is, I want to put you all on the payroll if I had the money. Yeah, I think I mentioned it last year that I had one guy who was applying, and he was completely like, you know, do I do it, do I not, do I do it, do I not? And he said, I made sure I went to a different church for adoration that night, Father. And a lady came up to me and said, have you thought of becoming a priest? I just said to him, we have them everywhere. You are surrounded. And so feel free to say a prayer for Ms. Leo, Ms. Perez. But also, as you make that invite, you never know if that person who you're inviting will be the one who later on gives you what you need at your greatest moment, and will be the one to say, Lord, open the gates of paradise for this soul.
Let's give Father.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for who you are.